There's a rhythm to action films, a precise choreography of movement, tension, and impact. We come to expect the right players at the right moment, the soldier flanking left, the hacker cracking the system, the informant glancing nervously before the drop. But what if they just weren't there? Not by narrative design, not as a twist, but because something or someone removed them. Some were scripted, others were filmed. A few even made it into the trailers. Their roles were planned, their presence announced. They were never meant to be invisible. And yet, when the final cut rolled, they were gone. No scene, no resolution, no explanation. It's not just a matter of editing choices. These are characters with intention, people, whose absence breaks the logic of the story. Subplots collapse, motivations lose footing, dialogues refer to ghosts. Studios may call it pacing. Directors might claim vision. But when a key figure disappears entirely and everything else pretends they were never there, it feels like something's been covered up, not cleaned up. Sometimes it's a scheduling conflict. Other times, a conflict of ego. And in a few rare cases, no one ever explains why it happened. All we're left with is a shadow, a role that once existed, barely remembered by the architecture it helped build. In this episode, we're pulling back that curtain. 15 action films where characters weren't just sidelined, they were erased. From posters, scripts, and set photos to nowhere. They weren't killed. They weren't written off. They were cut out so cleanly that you were never supposed to notice. But we did. Fact 1. Velocity Crossfire. 1998. In every trailer, she was there, red leathers, tinted visor, engine roaring like a warning shot. The mystery biker. The ghost on two wheels. But in Velocity Crossfire, she never shows up. The final film plays out like a solo ride. The protagonist weaves through danger alone. The stakes are personal, but feel strangely flat, like something's chasing him, but never quite appears. That's because it was. Originally, the Red Biker was written as the lead's ex-lover turned mercenary. Their history drove the tension. Their final chase was supposed to end in betrayal or redemption. All of it's gone. Sources from the set say her action scenes were shot but discarded after a stunt mishap. Others point to the studio demanding a simpler narrative. Less emotional conflict, more explosions. What's left behind is a film with empty space. In one scene, the lead turns as if expecting someone behind him. There's no one. A car flips off screen and the camera never shows what caused it. The climax ends without impact. She was meant to be the storm chasing him. Without her, Velocity Crossfire is just noise in a tunnel. And next, a federal agent who once questioned everything until the film decided questioning wasn't allowed. Fact 2. Terminal Justice, 1996. Every story about unchecked power needs someone to challenge it. In Terminal Justice, that person was Agent Mallory, a bureaucrat with a sharp mind, investigating the classified AI project at the heart of the chaos. He didn't run. He didn't fight. He asked questions that made everyone uncomfortable. Now he doesn't exist. The final cut omits him entirely. His scenes filmed, edited, even briefly previewed were removed before release. Dialogue meant for him was reassigned. Some was cut completely. His presence is reduced to holes in pacing, and they're hard to miss. There's a briefing with no one leading it. A confrontation where someone says, "That's what you told Mallory," followed by an awkward silence. A void where skepticism once lived. Why remove him? Studio notes reportedly labeled him a narrative slowdown. Others believe his scenes tested poorly with younger demographics. Maybe he was too real in a film trying to stay futuristic. But without Mallory, Terminal Justice has no moral friction. No checks, no weight. Just a straight line into mayhem. He was supposed to be the one who looked at the monster and said, "No." Now, there's no one left to say anything at all. Fact 3. Crimson Eden, 2000. Rebellions don't plan themselves. In Crimson Eden, the Resistance executes a series of flawlessly timed strikes against a totalitarian regime. Their intel is perfect, their timing surgical, and yet no source is ever named. No strategist, no leak. That's because she was cut. Dr. Hale, a high-ranking government biotechnologist turned whistleblower, was meant to be the secret thread holding the rebellion together. She appeared in encrypted transmissions, spoke through voice-modulated recordings. Her reveal was supposed to change everything. Now, she's a phantom. Her name isn't spoken. Her scenes are gone. But what remains are pieces too strange to ignore. A garbled message signed H, A rebel muttering, "She warned us about this." A character staring at a screen that never flickers on. Why was she removed? Creative disagreements, according to some. Studio pressure to streamline the plot, according to others. A test audience that didn't get her. Whatever the reason, she was pulled, but the bones of her role stayed embedded in the structure. And without her, Crimson Eden becomes a rebellion without a brain. Plans fall into place too easily. Victories feel unearned. The spark of conscience and complexity that was Hale. The system she tried to expose succeeded in wiping her out, not just in the story, but from the story. Up next, a man whose silence echoes through a blood-stained ring. Fact 4. Zero count. 1992. Every fighter has a voice in their corner. Someone who whispers just loud enough to be heard over the roar of the crowd. Zero count doesn't. It's a brutal film. Sweat, blood, concrete, a down-and-out boxer clawing his way back through illegal circuits. But he fights like he's chasing a ghost. And in a way, he is. That ghost's name was Dino. Originally, Dino was the trainer, the past. A silent observer who spoke only when it mattered. He wasn't flashy, but he grounded the story, reminding the fighter why he started and what he stood to lose. Then came the silence. Dino was cut during post-production. Some say it was due to lost footage. Others say the director chose to let the ghost remain unseen. But you can still feel him, his name scratched into a locker, a gaze held too long on an empty chair, the fighter muttering advice with no one nearby. Without Dino, the film is louder but hollower. Rage with no reason. Pain without reflection. You don't notice what's missing until the echoes stop answering back. And in the next film, the missing piece wasn't a mentor, it was the soul of the squad. Dino was cut during post-production. Some say it was due to lost footage. Others say the director chose to let the ghost remain unseen. But you can still feel him, his name scratched into a locker, a gaze held too long on an empty chair, the fighter muttering advice with no one nearby. They called it a war movie, with heart. Originally, Dino was the trainer, the past, a silent observer who spoke only when it mattered. He wasn't flashy, but he grounded the story, reminding the fighter why he started and what he stood to lose. He was the youngest, the idealist, the one who still believed. He appears briefly quiet, forgettable, then disappears completely. No lines, no development. Yet halfway through the film, the team leader collapses, weeping, saying, "We left him behind." Who? Anders was meant to die, stepping on a mine, his loss triggering the leader's unraveling. Test scripts confirm the arc. Press photos show him sharing scenes with the medic. One sequence, long since deleted, showed him asking, "Will I be like you when this ends?" But runtime took precedence. The studio needed a 90-minute cut for broadcast. Anders' arc was the casualty. His role was sliced out, but the emotional aftermath stayed. And it no longer makes sense. The squad still mourns him. The script still folds around a death we never see. Operation Swordline became a film grieving a ghost the audience never met. Fact 6. Heat Zone. 1996. The bullets fly. The streets burn. Two detectives navigate chaos, chasing ghosts in a city on the edge. But something's wrong. There's no oversight, no authority, and no one calling the shots. That's because Heat Zone once had a third pillar. Lieutenant Barris, the superior officer meant to be the pressure point between order and anarchy. He wasn't just background, he was the fuse, the one who tried to stop the collapse from inside. He's nowhere in the final cut. His name lingers in odd places. A line like, "Barris won't sign off on this," drops without context. A heated scene ends with a character looking off screen, waiting for someone who never appears. He did exist. Early promo materials included his name. Set photos captured him pacing a briefing room. His arc had weight, a man who believed in protocol but watched it fail. But when production shifted tone toward grittier realism, Barris was removed. The story pivoted to pure street-level action. His complexity, sacrificed for momentum. Without him, the system feels hollow. The tension floats, and Heat Zone becomes an engine without a steering wheel. The next character didn't hold power. She held purpose, until the edit decided her purpose was no longer needed. Fact 7. Neon Siege. 1994. The lead character in Neon Siege walks like he's haunted. He never speaks. He kills with precision. But there's a strange tenderness in his silence, one that doesn't match the violence around him. That softness had a name. The girl. She wasn't his daughter. Not exactly. Early drafts described her as the child of someone he once failed to protect, the last thread connecting him to a world before violence. She traveled with him through war-torn cityscapes. She offered no dialogue, just presence, fragile, human. She's gone now, removed completely. Yet the film still remembers her. The protagonist turns back to protect something that isn't there. He speaks to empty spaces. In one scene, he pockets a child's bracelet never explained, never referenced again. Why cut her? Studio notes claim she made the story too sentimental, that her inclusion diluted the edge. So they erased her, but not the emotions built around her. And so the killer walks alone. But his grief doesn't. Neon Siege bleeds style, but it once had a soul. And that soul had small hands and wide eyes. The final character on our list was supposed to deliver the twist. Instead, he was deleted before the twist could land. Fact 8. Shadow Protocol. 1998. Every thread in Shadow Protocol leads to him. Whispers of betrayal. Stolen data. Executions ordered without authorization. The mole was the question hanging over every act, and his name was Derek Vaughn. He was filmed. He was cast. He had scenes. One version of the script ends with the protagonist confronting him in a glass office, the city burning below. A battle of ideologies. One final, Kiad betrayal. The final cut removes him entirely. There's no reveal, no antagonist behind the curtain. The film ends with a call. It's over. We stopped it. But nothing is explained. No face to the betrayal, no resolution to the chase. So what happened? A late-stage re-edit. The director reportedly wanted ambiguity. The system is the villain, he said. Vaughn, once a man with motives and blood on his hands, became unnecessary. But the story still remembers him. Lines like, "He knew before we did," fall flat. Suspicion hangs in the air, unanswered. It's not a twist ending. It's a missing page. Shadow Protocol was never about chaos. It was about control, lost, seized, or surrendered. And Derek Vaughn? He was the one who was supposed to force us to choose, until the film chose to erase him instead. Fact 9. Code Red Delta, 1995. The plot moves like a drill, sharp, tight, no time to breathe. A special ops unit is sent behind enemy lines, their mission clear but their cohesion fractured. What's missing isn't just a man, it's authority. Captain Reyes was written as the voice of experience, the strategist, the one trying to keep young soldiers alive when plans fall apart. He's not in the final cut. Instead, orders are tossed between panicked troops. Decisions feel random. One character mutters, "This isn't what Reyes would have done," but no one ever clarifies who that is. According to early drafts, Reyes was the linchpin. He challenged the intel. He questioned motives. He gave the mission weight. Behind the scenes, photos show him pointing at a map, a scar running down his cheek. Then came the edit. Rumors suggest test audiences found the film too procedural. The studio wanted velocity, not reflection. Reyes' arc was cut to push the action forward without considering what it would cost. And it cost clarity. The mission feels rushed. The deaths feel hollow. Without Reyes, Code Red Delta becomes a film where the team runs headfirst into chaos, and no one seems to know why. It's not just a missing character, it's a missing command. And while this absence is subtle, the next one is neon lit and unmistakable. Fact 10. Rough Trigger. 1990. The blueprint was classic. Two opposites forced to work together. Rough Trigger originally followed a gruff bounty hunter and a smooth-talking rival, Mikey Chan, as they hunted the same fugitive across a neon-lit city. But by the time the film hit VHS shelves, Mikey was missing. The result is a film that feels incomplete. Trigger talks to himself in scenes clearly meant for conversation. He opens a passenger side door, then slams it shut without explanation. Fight scenes lack rhythm, as if half the choreography is missing. That's because it is. Production notes confirm Mikey was filmed. One behind-the-scenes photo shows him and Trigger mid-standoff, weapons drawn but smiling. Early drafts had him double-cross Trigger in Act 2, then return for a redemption arc in the finale. But the studio wasn't sold. They worried the chemistry would steal focus from the main star. The order came down to remove Mikey and keep the runtime under 90 minutes. No reshoots, just cuts. The result? A loner story stitched from what was meant to be a duo. Trigger's silence feels forced. The pacing stutters. The world feels emptier than intended. Mikey's gone, but the seams he held together are still visible. Fact 11. Extreme Honor. 2001. A film needs a climax. In Extreme Honor, that buildup was supposed to come in the form of the Enforcer, a hulking figure who worked under the arms dealer, feared even by his allies. He was the hammer to the dealer's scalpel, the fight everyone expected. He never arrives. The script laid it out clearly. The protagonist would battle his way up a tower, room by room, only to face the Enforcer in a brutal rooftop fight. The trailer included a fast glimpse, two silhouettes colliding in the rain. In the movie? Nothing. The dealer dies quickly. The finale feels oddly small. The explosion goes off, the credits roll, and audiences are left asking, was that it? Behind the scenes, stories vary. One says the actor was injured during rehearsals, forcing production to cut the sequence. Another claims test audiences preferred less brawling, more closure. Either way, the Enforcer's scenes were scrapped and no rewrite filled the space he left. Still, remnants flicker. The hero flinches at a sound behind a door that never opens. A hallway camera pans like it's tracking someone who never steps in. And the film's pacing builds toward a crescendo that never plays. What Extreme Honor lost wasn't just a fight. It was the weight that makes victory feel earned. Now picture a film meant to be about a bond between two men until one of them was erased like he was never written. One says the actor was injured during rehearsals, forcing production to cut the sequence. Another claims test audiences preferred less brawling, more closure. Either way, the Enforcer's scenes were scrapped and no rewrite filled the space he left. In the movie? Nothing. One says the actor was injured during rehearsals, forcing production to cut the sequence. Another claims test audiences preferred less brawling, more closure. Either way, the Enforcer's scenes were scrapped and no rewrite filled the space he left. In the movie? Nothing. We stick to Carter's plan. Carter wouldn't go this route. Did Carter authorize that? But there's no Carter. Not in the frame, not in the credits, not in the film. He was supposed to be there, Sergeant Carter, the squad leader, caught between orders and his conscience. Press kits listed him as a major role. Production stills showed him briefing the team, gun slung low. His arc involved refusing a direct kill order, sparking mutiny. But something changed. A studio note allegedly called his character too introspective. Another memo suggested the story moved faster without a conscience. In the end, his scenes were deleted and dialogue repurposed to fill the gaps. Only the gaps remain. Without Carter, the squad seems to follow a ghost. Their decisions lack structure. Their doubts are voiced to no one. And the story, which once held tension between obedience and instinct, now just marches forward on adrenaline. White Rush didn't lose a character. It lost its compass. Next, we look at a villain's shadow, the muscle, the threat, the showdown that never happened. Fact 13. The Peacekeeper, 1997. He stood next to the president on the poster, not a background face, a key figure. The press kit called him the conscience of the White House, a loyal aide with access to classified intelligence and doubts about what was unfolding. His name, lost to the archives. His scenes, never seen. In the final film, none of it exists. In early promotional interviews, the actor discussed his role as a voice of reason, someone caught between loyalty and fear. Storyboard frames show him in a tense briefing, whispering to the president. The trailer includes a single shot he leans in, says, "This isn't just a leak, it's a war." In the final film, none of it exists. The plot moves forward without him. The internal pushback is gone. The president appears surrounded by silence. At one point, someone says, "He tried to warn us." Who? About what? The thread hangs with no anchor. Why was he removed? In early promotional interviews, the actor discussed his role as a voice of reason, someone caught between loyalty and fear. Storyboard frames show him in a tense briefing, whispering to the president. The trailer includes a single shot he leans in, says, "This isn't just a leak, it's a war." But his presence was real. Without him, the stakes feel manufactured. No one inside the system questions anything. And the audience is left wondering if anyone ever cared before the missiles launched. Instead, the Peacekeeper chose silence over dissent. Fact 14. Maximum Breakout, 1991. For the first half of Maximum Breakout, Officer Ramirez is impossible to ignore. She's sharp, relentless, and constantly clashing with the film's grizzled lead. She chases suspects, interrogates witnesses, and uncovers the thread that ties everything together. Then, she vanishes. Not a dramatic exit, Not a heroic death. One scene, she's storming a warehouse, and the next, she's gone. No mention, no resolution. The team moves on like she was never there. It's jarring, especially since earlier marketing materials positioned her as the co-lead. And if you dig into the DVD extras, things get stranger. A few press stills show her in scenes that don't exist in the movie, one in the final shootout, another in a hospital, handcuffed. Rumors suggest her character had a late-breaking twist. She was supposed to betray the team. But somewhere along the way, that thread was cut. Studio interference? Creative indecision? Something behind the scenes? All we know is what's left behind. Dialogue meant for her, now delivered awkwardly by other characters. A scene transition that makes no sense. A final act that feels like it's missing a fuse. Ramirez was the spark. Her absence dims everything around her. But while she faded halfway through, the next character was erased before the audience ever got to meet him despite starring in the film's own marketing. Fact 15. Firepower. 1,993. He wasn't a sidekick. He wasn't a nameless tech guy. He was the pivot. In Firepower, the infiltration hinges on a digital breach access codes, firewalls, surveillance override. The mission is impossible without it. And in earlier versions of the story, that breach had a face. A hacker, young, skilled, over his head, and essential. But in the final cut, he's nowhere. The breach still happens. The team moves forward, but there's no scene showing how. No character pressing the keys, no voice in their earpiece. There's a single line, "We got through," and that's it. The hacker was supposed to be part of the core trio. Trailers even flashed him briefly, his face half lit in green. He had lines, he had a death, he had purpose. Then came the reshoots. Some insiders say the actor's performance didn't land. Others whisper about script changes that rendered his scenes too slow. Whatever the reason, the decision was made to slice him out completely and patch over the gap with rushed exposition. But the patch doesn't hold. The film stumbles when logic breaks. Characters react to unseen signals. A mission jumps from point A to point D, and under all the gunfire and shouting, there's an echo of someone who was supposed to be there. Firepower tried to pretend the hacker never existed, but that absence burns brighter than any muzzle flash. And the next film on our list? It didn't wait until post-production to erase someone, it did it right in the middle of the movie. Bonus fact: Final Directive, 1,990. The role that was never played. Most missing characters were filmed, framed, and then removed. But in Final Directive, the mystery goes deeper. Because this time, the character was never even cast. The story is structured around a trial. General McCrae, a revered military figure, stands accused of crimes against humanity. But the trial didn't begin with an arrest. It began with a leak, classified footage, internal reports, a silent voice that brought it all to light. That voice was Captain Juno. He appears in every draft of the script, the man who broke rank, the one who triggered the tribunal. He was meant to haunt the proceedings from a distance never seen until the final act, when he walks into the courtroom to testify and shift the narrative forever. But in the final film, there's no Juno. No actor was hired. No scenes were shot. His name is never spoken. And yet, the structure still bends around him. A folder marked J is opened, then quickly shut. The prosecutor says, "Without the source, we wouldn't be here." And the accused? He mutters once, under his breath, "He did what none of us could." Juno lives in those moments. So why remove him? Legend says the director felt his inclusion gave the audience too clean of a conscience, that making the leak a person would make the film too black and white. So instead, they let the leak become a ghost, never filmed, never named, but still responsible for everything. Captain Juno doesn't appear. So why remove him? But he's everywhere. Some disappearances are scripted, others are accidents. But the ones we explored today, they feel like choices, but the traces remain. A line without a reply, a stare into empty space, a scene that builds to nothing. So now we ask you, which character's absence spoke the loudest? Which missing piece still echoes in your memory? Let us know, because sometimes the most haunting role is the one you never saw.